Today I'm here to share about my learning on the topic Agile Beyond Framework. Before we move on to the topic, I'd like to share something about who am I. I'm Pramesh Vaidya. Currently I'm working as a Deputy Director of Software Development at Lockwood. Lockwood works in the field of cybersecurity. I'm also an Agile enthusiast. I regularly work with teams across multiple organizations who is going through their Agile journey. I'm also a regular speaker at local meetups and fortunately had chances to attend some international conferences. I'm also an active member of the Agile Nepal community. So, regarding the structure of the session, though initially the session was planned for 90 minutes, since we have a slightly crunch time of around 45 minutes, so I'll sprint through few of the topics. However, the focus of the session would be lean coffee and the workshop on lean coffee. So we'll start with Agile frameworks and some challenges with it. Then we'll move on to the concept of leadership toolbox, where we'll slightly touch upon the areas such as community of practice or exploration days or personal map. Then we'll move on to lean coffee, which is the main focus of today's session. We'll also do a quick workshop on lean coffee, if you stick around. And then finally we'll end the session by summarizing the learnings. So, Agile framework. How many of you have used or are using any of the Agile frameworks? It could be any Agile frameworks. It could be Scrum. It could be extreme programming. It could be Kanban. It could be SAFe. It could be less, or it could be anything, any framework. Even following these frameworks, sometimes do you see some challenges with it? Let's say if you are following Scrum, and as per the suggestions made by Scrum Guide, and even face some challenges with it. Like if you have the PO role, you have the Scrum Master role, you have the development team, however, and you follow all the ceremonies, however, you still feel some challenges. And some of the challenges that I have listed here are some of the representative challenges only. It's not necessarily that it covers all the challenges. These are just some representations. So, and there could be a few other challenges that you can identify on your own, or it could just be an amendment to what I have shared here. So, one of the challenges that I have seen with teams is lack of innovation. Or it could be a disengaged team member. So team member doesn't correlate with the product development or the product being or doesn't correlate with the product that is being developed. Or it could just be missing connect among team members. Also, some few challenges could be lack of motivation. It could be an intrinsic motivation, it could be an extrinsic motivation, or it could be just a lack of inspiration, and it could be monotonous environment. These are just some of the representative challenges that I have shared. It's not necessary that this completely represents all of the challenges, but these are just some of the representation. So, in this case, how can you help as a leader to address these challenges? There could be many ways, but something that have worked for me is the concept of experimentation. So, as a leader, I always suggest at least share some knowledge in terms of start building the culture of experimentation and fostering it. The reason being, if you approach any problem as if you are planning it and trying to solve the problem, you have some anticipated outcome in mind even before you address the problem. So as a human mind, how we think is, we have a problem, we have a solution, and we'll go towards it. So even the implementation that we are making is based on the anticipated outcome. And a lot of things such as the fear of failure starts to kick in. However, if we rephrase the same thing as running it as an experiment, it is like, okay, this is an experiment, and let's start this and see how it goes. So in the case of experimentation, we haven't any desired outcome in mind. It's something that we are experimenting, which says that it gives us freedom, it gives us or frees us from the fear of failure, and what it means is as you are more free to do things, you engage more, and the results shows that teams tend to better when you frame the problem as an experiment. So building your leadership toolbox. So as a leader now you think that, okay, you want to run the experiment in your organization. So I suggest that build your toolbox for yourself. So it's not necessarily that a toolbox that is applicable for me is applicable for you guys, but it's just the collection of experiments that has worked for me. That doesn't mean that it will necessarily work for you. There are thousands of experimentation that people do and the experimentation techniques that's popular. You can pick one of them that would work for you, or you could generate your own experiment. And in the next following slides, I'll be sharing some of the experiments that has worked for me or that I have tried with few teams and that's worked. And there could be few others that you might want to devise for your own. So first, I'll start with the topic of communities of practice. Have anybody of you heard about the community of practice? Great. So community of practice is a group of people who share a passion for something and want to learn more about it by meeting regularly. Three things in community of practice. One is the domain. That is the area that you want to expand your expertise on. Another one is you build a community around that domain. And third one is you practice it. So it's not like she and I have some conversation and it's community of practice. So you need to come up with some practice, and then you need to be able to apply this. And if you are a leader and if you want to foster the culture of learning or continuous learning in your organization, this is a very nice experiment to run. So another one that works for a lot of organizations is exploration days. Sometimes even called hackathons or ship it days. These are very good if you want to generate new ideas. So I'm just going through some of the basics that organizations tend to fall back to and do it one way or the other. I'm just trying to reorganize and giving it a fancy name of leadership toolbox. So in case of exploration days, you invite your team members to a session. You give them a time box. You give them a freedom to learn, experiment, and generate new ideas. It's not necessary that every new idea would convert into a product or a solution. It's just a platform for you to experiment. If you have heard about the Australian company called Atlassian who developed Jira, they regularly run exploration days to come up with new ideas for their product development. Another one is personal map. Have any of you heard about Jürgen Apollo or read his book Management 3.0? Okay, great. So I borrowed this concept from his book. That's personal map. Personal map is a technique that Jürgen Apollo devised. That's inspired from the mind mapping technique. So he borrowed the concept of mind mapping technique to create a personal map of the person that you want to get a better understanding of. So this is a very good tool if you want to create or make the interaction between the team members better, or if you want to ensure that at least the team members know each other on a slightly better manner. So you start with some general topics of the person that you want to know better of, and then just create map around those areas. It's even a very good tool if you use it for yourself to get a better understanding of yourself. Now we move on to the lean coffee part. So regarding the lean coffee, You may be wondering why lean coffee. I've talked about the exploration days, I've talked about personal map, I've talked about the communities of practice, but why lean coffee for today's session on regional Scrum gathering? The only reason being it's such a versatile tool or technique. It can be used in small scenarios, like for example, if you are doing a retrospective of a team, this tool can be used. Or this technique can be used even by the C-level executives to come up with some strategies for the organization. So the versatility of the tool makes it really, not exactly a tool, technique makes it really desirable to be shared with the audience today. So when we go into lean coffee, let's start with what is lean coffee. Lean coffee is a structured but agendaless meeting. So how does lean coffee work? Participants gather, build their agenda, and begin talking. So conversations are directed and productive as the agenda is democratically generated. So three things here. So it's an agendaless meeting. However, it's structured. So participants gather and build their own agenda and discuss on it. So the primary reason being conversations are directed and productive. It's not a meeting that the management has set up for you to get a status update meeting. It's the meeting that you have come up with. The agenda is something that you have come up with. So the involvement is in a much higher level. So when the involvement is higher, the focus tends to be there, and then even we believe that the outcome that you get through the meeting is much more effective compared to the meeting that's organized by someone with their agenda, keeping their agenda in mind. So let's see how lean coffee works. So for the lean coffee, you start by creating a simple personal Kanban. So there will be 3 columns, that is to discuss, discussing, and discussed. The second step is you brainstorm on the topics. You take a post-it, write your name and the topic. When you write the topic, please write one topic in just one post-it. The only reason being it would be helpful to prioritize the topic. Once you have brainstormed the topic, pitch your topic to the group members of your team that you want to discuss as to why you want to talk about or discuss on this particular topic. However, please try to make it as concise as possible. Then, in the 4th section, probably you'll have a time limit, so you need to prioritize the topic that you want to discuss on. And how do you do it? You do it using a technique called dot voting. Anyone familiar with the dot voting technique? Okay. So I'll share briefly about dot voting technique. Dot voting technique is everyone would get, like, let's say 2 or 3 votes that they can use on. Let's say she will get 3 votes, he'll get 3 votes, one of them will get 3 votes. So what they can do is they can cast their votes on the topic that they want to discuss. They can cast all their 3 votes in a particular topic that they want to discuss, or they can distribute their votes on the topics that they want to discuss. Right? And at the end after the voting is done, the topic that has the highest number of votes are being discussed first and is on top of the Kanban queue. So that is how we prioritize, or the team prioritize, the topic that they want to discuss on. Once the topic has been prioritized, we manage the flow of conversation. And how do we do that? We do the conversation in 2 rounds just to keep it focused and a productive session. So we do it, the first round is usually of around 5 to 10 minutes. And the second round is usually half the time of the first round. So at the end of the first round, the team decides whether they want to continue discussing on that particular topic, or they want to stop discussing on the particular topic and move on and pick another topic that they want to discuss. Fine. And how do teams decide that? Every member of the team at the end of the round 1 do this by silent voting using a technique for thumbs up, thumbs down, or maybe I don't know. So a group all the members of the group gather. They do a silent voting. If the number of thumbs up is greater than the number of thumbs down, then they move on to second round to discuss. If thumbs down is greater, then they end the discussion there and they move on to the next topic. Right? And then when you are actually doing the discussion, so you take a topic that from the to discuss column to discussing, and then once the discussion is done, you move it to the discussed column. Right? And what I've usually seen with teams is they are so focused, so since there is a time box for each round of discussion. So what happens is, since the teams are so focused to discuss on the particular topic, after the discussion is over, they sometimes feel that, oh, there were a lot of learnings that I could have taken, but I just forgot it. So what I suggest teams to do is log the learnings when they are having the discussion. So as far as possible, log the learnings. You can log the learnings in a separate area in whatever manner you can do it. Fine. Any confusions on this one? We will do a hands-on session for this one, and if there are any confusions, we can also talk about that during the actual hands-on session. So next one is the workshop, and as we mentioned, or as I mentioned, we'll be doing a workshop on lean coffee. So what I suggest is form a group among yourself. Try to form a group with people that you haven't actually had the chance to interact with. Form a group of people of around 6 to 9 members, and also identify a facilitator for the group. The only reason being, they will help you to be along the guidelines of what lean coffee suggests, and for time boxing the discussion. So you'll have around 3 minutes to form the group, and then after that, please brainstorm and prioritize the topics that you guys want to discuss. So you brainstorm the topic and then prioritize the topic that you want to discuss using the dot voting technique. Come up with topics, brainstorm, pitch your topic with your group, prioritize the topic using the dot voting technique. And for that, please try to stay within 7 minutes. Another one is the total time for the actual discussion session. I've kept it around 15 minutes. So technically, if you have a round 1 of around 5 minutes, and if you don't go to round 2, you can technically pick up like 3 topics to discuss. But since this is something that you may be doing it for the first time, so you might take some additional time. So I suggest even doing 1 topic, getting a basic understanding of lean coffee is fine. So I suggest that keeping round 1 within 5 minutes. Some topic suggestions for lean coffee for today. It's an open agenda, so you can discuss, or the group can decide among yourself. But because of the time concept, I had to sprint through some of the techniques or some of the experimentation techniques that I wanted to share in much more detail, like immediate practice, exploration days, or personal map. So I suggest if you want to pick up, that could be some of the topics that you want to discuss during the lean coffee. So to keep the time boxing, I'll just blow a whistle. So you'll hear this sound once the time box expires. So you'll hear this whistle once you have your time ends for forming the group. Once you need to brainstorm and prioritize the topic, and once you need to end the discussion. Any queries so far? If not, maybe we can actually start the workshop session. So please form group among yourself.
त्यस्तो भयो भने बेटर भयो है हो
के गर्ने त डट भोटिङमा सबैले 3 पोइन्ट्सहरु लिऊ हैन
Topic that you guys want to discuss?
This way won't work. You have to put it down. It sticks much nicer.
So please pitch in the topic.
It's fun. Go ahead.
एउटा स्क्रम मास्टर मल्टिपल
मल्टिपल टिममा तर त्यो चाहिँ च्यालेन्जिङ हुन्छ सो कसरी ह्यान्डल गर्ने के गर्ने भनेर
हामीले जस्ट स्क्रम टिमहरूमा काम गरेर तर स्क्रम्स भनेर चाहिँ छैन होइन अनि कुनै पनि इम्पेरिमेन्ट्सहरू अनि सिएचआरओ होइन अनि सिएफओ त्यो सिएक्सओ लेभल सिटिओ सिआइओहरू त्यस्तो भएको एक्सन टिम छ उनीहरूले चाहिँ के गर्छ नि एसडिएस डेली स्ट्यान्डअप मिटिङ पनि गरेर आउँछ अन्त इम्पेरिमेन्ट्सहरू के छ त्यसलाई
4 मिनट जानलाई 4 मिनट जानलाई सो बिस्तारै डट भोटिङ सुरु गर्न थाल्यो
We got 4 boards here. Personnel map and retrospect, you have 3 boards here. Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's right.
the team decides which one you want to pick.
Yeah, we start discussing. In the team, then we came to know that that became the legacy, and so whatever products that were written down in the syllabus, all these things, now we stack in the protector and other technologies. In a week, we need to deliver like 50 scripts.
We're thinking about it. माथिबाट सर्टिङ हुन्छ उनीहरूलाई नलेज दिइसकेपछि मात्रै अनि जुन चाहिँ अब
As long as that goal is met, it's not really important कि हामीले त्यो shippable items हुनुपर्छ भनेर बाइ द बुक जानु पर्दैन कि
How it felt compared to the agenda-based meeting? Sorry? Sorry, we could have grabbed the water. But the
question on why it is called lean coffee.
Sure, that I can answer. That I can answer. The lean, sorry. So the lean coffee is primarily coming from the lean management or lean concept. So it's more of a cutting down the waste. So the way we previously used to do meeting was set an agenda and work on it. The agenda could be applicable for one guy in the meeting room and everybody participated for the one agenda. It may not be applicable for anyone. Right now it's agenda-less. Actually the agenda is being identified by the team and it is being prioritized by the team. And also that is why it is being democratically identified and it is strictly time-boxed. So you see, for each of the topic discussion, you have round 1 with 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and then you time box it to another one. So you tend to have a focused discussion within that time frame. So it was more by cutting down the waste. That is why it's called lean coffee. Any further question? Any experience that you guys want to share on lean coffee? Great.
Generally what happens, sometimes whenever we start lean coffee in the organizations first time, people see these sessions as like decision making sessions.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's very important that whenever we are organizing lean coffees, we basically convey the message that these sessions are for learning, for sharing our experiences, not to take any decisions or not a feedback session. So, I mean, I have experienced quite a lot where people were like, okay, I mean, we gave feedback and nothing happened in the organization on that. So.
Yeah. Anyone? Last one. We would be able to take just one more. If anybody wants to share an experience. I think we are almost time. So I'd just like to end with one last slide to summarize the learning for today. So what we talked about is, if I have to summarize my session for today, so it's like you start first. When you start in your Agile journey, you start somewhere. Then introduce the culture of experimentation, right? It could be anything. It could be few of the things that we talked today, but it's not necessary that some of the things that work for me or in my team or in my organization works for you. You need to identify what experiment that you want to set up within your team, within your organization. Try to set up do some experiment. Hold on to the good things that's applicable for your team, for you, for your organization. Get rid of the things that doesn't work. And ultimately iterate and never stop learning. So that's the whole, if I have to summarize my session for today, that would be the slide. And if you have any questions, unfortunately we are running out of time, so I'll not be able to take up any more further questions, but I'd be around the conference, so if you have any questions, please feel free to connect, or you can connect in Gmail or LinkedIn if you want if you want to discuss more about today's session, or lean coffee in general, or Agile in general. I'd love to connect with you. Thank you everyone, and hope you have a wonderful day.